Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. In the last video I bought this massive excavator. It's old, it has a fair number of problems, but it's pretty functional and I got to work on it. The first thing I need to fix is these leaky hydraulic cylinders, and in the last video I took both of them off and pulled them apart, and now we need to get seals and get them back together, hopefully. Often when you're dealing with old equipment, getting parts can be a huge challenge if you're lucky enough to be able to find the parts at all, and that is certainly true for this machine. I think before I'm done, this project is going to be testing the limits of my skills. So let's get into it. Alright, so I'm going to take a minute and talk about seals. If you're not interested in this, I will leave a link for the timestamp to go to skip all of this. This is something that I've been really wanting to learn for a long time. I'm getting better at it. I'm still not all the way there, but Hercules seems to be like at least in this area, probably in the US, one of the premier hydraulic seal manufacturers out there. Not a sponsor, I'm just sharing information, and I got online, I filled out a little form, said, hey, will you send me your catalog? They sent it. And there is so much stuff in here, it's rather intimidating. You know, you don't even know where to start. But I'm going to kind of show you where to start, at least somewhat. I tried to identify what these cylinders were and figure out what I would need to do to order seals, but I quickly gave up and went to the hydraulic shop. But now I have more knowledge base. I think I'd be much more successful at this point. So, the first thing I did is I measured the rod. The rod measured 3.739 inches, and that had me scratching my head. 3.75 would be 3 3/4. That is an expected measurement. So then I measured the bore, and I got 5.712. That doesn't make any sense. That's not even close to a nominal measurement. If it's an inch cylinder, it's going to be 3, 3 1/4, which would be 3.250, 3.5, 3.75, or 4. And same with the bore. It's going to be 5, 5 1/4, 5 1/2, 5 3/4. You're not going to get these goofy to the thousandth of an inch measurement on a bore. So, convert those over to metric, and I get 94.97 millimeters. Well, that's 95. That had me scratching my head. It's like, well, if you're going to do a metric cylinder, you're going to do 95, why not just make it 100? 90 or 100. I mean, 5 millimeters is less than 1/4 inch. And then the bore came out to 145.1. So I really wasn't sure, is this like some oddball inch cylinder? Is this a metric cylinder? I didn't know. I went to the hydraulic shop and he scratched his head a little bit when he first started measuring too, but quickly discovered this is a metric cylinder. It's an oddball one, but this is a 95 by 145 cylinder. So, the big mystery was, what gland seal goes in here, or rod seal, goes down in this groove here? Remember the seal that was totally destroyed? I mean, how do you know? So you need to know the ID, which is the rod, the OD, which is the measurement out to the edges of that groove, and then the height. So, the groove measurements, we know the rod was 95 millimeters. When you measure side to side, the outside of that groove was 115 millimeters, and then the groove height came out to 14.5 millimeters. That height is not critical. That is the dimension top to bottom as it sits, and that's not a dimension that's needed for sealing. That's just, you need room for your seal to go in there, and you want a little bit of play. Not too much, obviously, but it's just not that big of a deal. If we go to our seal catalog, now let me just show you how this thing's set up real quick. You open it up and very quickly you find the inch seals, and you're going to see here's rod use seals. Those are the most common kind of rod seals. They give you the profiles. You can kind of tell what they're made of. They talk more about them when you go to the actual page of that seal. And all the seals you could possibly want, or just about. Wear bands, piston seals, it's all in here. After inch seals, you go to metric seals, and it's the same thing. Well, here's your rod seals, here's your piston seals. So the first thing you need to do is figure out, is this cylinder inch or metric? And mine was metric. So, and I needed to be confident enough in my ability, which I wasn't, to say this is definitely metric. It was nice to have the hydraulic shop confirm that, or to help me through all that. Now I need a rod seal. I'm in the metric section, and it looks like they start at page 504. So here we are at page 504. Now, they've got a measurement A, a measurement B, the inside diameter, the outside diameter. And here's A, and I know my A needs to be 95. That's my rod. So I go down here and I find a 95. But then I look at B and it's 110. The next one below it is 100 and 115. So that style of seal, they don't have my size. I need 95, 115, and something that will fit in 14 and a half. We don't have it in that style of seal. So let's go to the next one and see all the other ones are smaller or bigger. They're all arranged by size here. So scan down. No, I don't have a 95 on this one at all. Those are all bigger. Let's see, there's a 95 110. That's no good. That's bigger. Just going up in size. Okay, here's a bunch of 95s. 95, 110, 110, 115. Look at that. 95, 115, and it's 12 is the height. So that will fit into my 14 and a half. Here it gives you some information on the groove width, the rod diameter. It's supposed to be 95. It gives you a plus or minus on that. The housing diameter, 115 plus or minus 0.11, and gives you the price, $37.86. So that is an MRTU 95 by 115 by 12. That seal will fit. The problem I have here is my excavator has a heavy lift mode, which brings the hydraulic pressure up to 5,700 psi. And these are only 0 to 5,000 psi. For each seal type, it's got a temperature range, it's got the material, tells you what it's made out of, the pressure rating, and how fast you can cycle. In every machine that I've ever worked on, this, once I found this correct seal size, this would have worked. Not with mine. And I don't think I have in this book the right seal that I would need. But it turns out they were able to get me one. This one is rated for more than the 5,700 psi. I hope that made some sense in how I would have located this seal in this book without any help. Identify that the cylinder is metric, get your groove dimensions, and you need the rod to be exactly right, you need the OD to be exactly right, and you need the height to be, very close, but less than the height of your groove, and that would work. Let's actually do one together. Let's say I wanted to find the wiper for this. So the wiper goes right here in this groove. I know my rod size is 95, so I'm going to measure the OD. Yeah, and it looks like that's 105. So I need a 95 by 105. And then I need to measure how deep this is. How deep is that groove? So that's 10. So that is going to be very much like the other one. That's the height. It's not that critical. It needs to be less than that. Obviously you don't want it more and sticking out. I need a 95 by 105 by 10, less than 10. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. So wiper rings, they start at 711. Now I have the old one, and it's just a single simple wiper. It has a metal ring on the outside. So let me see, there you go, right there. A metal clad wiper, and those start at 741. Here's another metal clad wiper that looks very much like it, and that's at 745. And one thing that used to sort of bother me is I just didn't know, does it matter? I mean, if you found a wiper MCKBI, if it's within the specifications and it fits, it's going to work. I mean, it's a wiper. It's not that big of a deal. This is looking a lot like these, so let's go to 745 and see if we can find it. A is my ID. I need that to be 95. B is 105. So 95, 109. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. It's interesting. I've got a bunch of 90 105s, but no 95 105. I think that's why this is an oddball metric cylinder. There. So there's 95, 105, 7. So it's an MCWN 95 by 105 by 7. So that should work. And we go back and we look at the MCWN wipers. It's nitrile, the temperature range, and the speed. No PSI rating on a wiper. Let's see what they gave me. Check that out. MCWN 95 by, I bet you that says 105 by 7. Yep. 95 by 105 by 7. That is the wiper that they gave me. Well, they didn't give me. I had to buy it. And all these seals weren't cheap. So another challenge that we had was the wear bands that were on the pistons are no longer available. New wear bands are made out of this phenolic stuff. It's very tough and hard. This is old school, it's just nylon. As far as getting a wear band that's made this size, he could not find one. But also in this Hercules catalog, they have rolls of it that you can buy and then just cut it to the length that you need. So that's what I'm going to do with these. This is a bronze-filled PTFE, and there's 8 feet of this. Guess how much that cost? $181. But wear bands are expensive. Like these were 20 bucks a piece, and I would have needed 6 of them. I can reuse them. That's saving me 120 bucks. I'm glad to put something better and replace these that have all these score marks on them for these. And one other thing I learned is this place makes custom seals. So he said if you have a hydraulic cylinder, as long as the barrel's okay and the metal in it is okay and you need seals, they can always get you seals. They might have to be custom made. You're going to pay a little more. He said it's actually not that bad. A good hydraulic shop that knows what they're doing is going to be able to get seals for any cylinder because they can have them custom made. So pretty cool. Good stuff to know. Let's get back to work. All right, let's rebuild these glands. The lips go towards the pressure, and this is the top, so pressure is on the other side. So in other words, the lips go down as you're looking at that. Man, that looks a little better than the other one did, doesn't it? That's a good looking seal. This is the wear band going back in. So, how much did I pay for all these seals? I actually got seals for 3 cylinders because there's one more cylinder on the machine, the other boom lift cylinder, that could potentially go bad, and these were kind of tough to get, so I went ahead and ordered them, so I have them. And it was 800 bucks for all 3 cylinders. So a little over 250 bucks a piece. Not cheap, but man, these are huge cylinders. Imagine buying new cylinders. Now you're probably wondering, what did I pay for the machine? That's a reasonable question. Have you guys put your guesses down in the comments? It runs, it operates, it's got a couple leaking cylinders, and good undercarriage, good engine. So what did I pay for it? I paid $7,700 for it. Yes, I paid scrap price for it, even though it is a functioning machine. And that's because it's obviously hard to get parts for, it's hard to work on, nobody wants it. And the guy just wanted it off his lot. For him to scrap it, he'd have to then haul it to the scrap yard and pay a bunch of fees for that. And it made more sense for him to sell it for scrap price. Now, I bought this thing in New Jersey. I'm in Virginia. So this thing went many hundreds of miles to get to me, and I had to pay $4,000 to make that happen. So I have $11,700 in this machine. Man, I really wish I had been closer, and I could have transported it for $1,500 or $2,000, but it is what it is. $11,700 is what I have in it. What do you think? Did I get ripped off? I don't think you can say I got ripped off, but anytime you buy a machine like this, it's that old, it's a gamble. There is potential to come into something breaks that the cost of fixing it is just never going to be worth it. I mean, the chances of me not being able to get a part for this machine are actually quite high. So the O-ring goes towards the pressure, the backup ring is of course behind that. There you go. want to destroy it beating on it. It would be better to use the old seal. She's in there. We're going to pretend that I didn't just use the new seal, the new wiper, to put that one in. But I did. But again, it's just a wiper. It'll be alright. Yeah, that'll be fine. Now, these are the pistons, and this groove had a backup ring on either side with an O-ring in the middle, and the reason for that is because it sees pressure on both sides. The piston is either getting pushed or retracted, so it's going to have pressure on both sides of it. You know, I need to give a shout out to my hydraulics shop. I've been going to these guys for years. It's Hawkins Graves in Lynchburg, Virginia. They're not giving me anything to say this. They just deserve. It's a small business. They do a great job. They're always very helpful. And they really went above and beyond getting these seals for me. If you're in the Lynchburg area, definitely give them a call. And even if you're not, if it's something that can be handled over the phone and mail order, give them a call. They're a really good business and good to deal with. That's going to do that. I'm going to cut those out now. I'm not going to put anything on these until right before I put the cylinders together, just because they'll end up collecting dirt and dust and all that junk. Enough to make 5 wear bands, $180, $36 a piece. Okay, I'm getting these rods cleaned up, and this is the one for the bucket curl. There is a scratch right there. There's a couple other little nicks on it like here, but they still have chrome and you can hardly even feel it. So I'm not worried about that. But this one here gets through the chrome. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's nice and smooth. It's probably not a big deal, but it will make it leak a little bit every time the seal goes over that. So I'm gonna mix up some PC7 and I'm actually gonna scrape this out a little bit, brake clean it, get it nice and clean, and put some PC7 on there and then sand it back to smooth. After probably 48 hours, that will be sandable, and I'll just lightly sand it back to flush. That way, whenever the seal runs over that, it doesn't have a little gap for oil to hide and then drip. All right, so this is the gland for the bucket curl cylinder, and we're going to grease it up. Greasing up my gland. Let's go put this on the rod. Nice. Alright, greasing up these piston seals. So this is the hole that has the pin that needs to go in. So I need to turn this until it lines up with the hole that's on the rod. So right here is where the hole is for the pin, and I put a mark there so that once I line up that hole with that mark and it's screwed all the way in, the pin should be lined up. I really shouldn't be using the chain wrench here because this is the piston. It's fine to use on the gland, but this piston is inside the barrel and is sliding up and down. if you push up a burr on it and it's sticking out enough, it could actually contact the barrel. Yeah, just hit a stop. So off camera later, I did go over the thing very carefully and sand off any rough spots and make sure nothing was sticking out. Yeah, I'm going to need to rig this thing up again so that I can use my homemade spanner wrench and really torque on that, because it needs to turn like another probably 1/4 inch. Be nice if I had the cylinder the other way so that I was pushing down instead of pulling up. But let me see if I can do it. Not moving. I was thinking if I flipped the eye 180 degrees, I would then be able to push down with my wrench. But of course, that's not right. That really stinks. 90 degrees does it, but then I can't hold it down with the pipe and digging bar like I've been doing. I need that like that, not down here. Because if I put the bar on this side when I'm like this, then I'm lifting up. And if I put it on this side, then I don't have any room. If that makes any sense. Yeah, that's just picking up the whole skid steer. It's amazing what you can do with a lever. Wasn't expecting this to be such a pain. All right, so here's my setup. I've got the skid steer on it, but that's not really doing anything. This pipe is in the eye. The digging bar is chained back to my car lift. And there's a huge mechanical advantage there. There's no way by hand power that I'm gonna be damaging anything here. So when I start trying to tighten it, which is that way, it's going to want to twist and that chain is going to get tighter and stop it. Let's tighten this thing up. Oh, it just moved. I think that's it. As long as the pin goes in there, we're good. Yeah, there's the pin. Now I'm going to do some Loctite 222. This is low strength thread locker. It'll never get so tight that it'll be difficult to remove, but it'll prevent this thing from vibrating its way out. Click! Now this is just the preload ring, so these are just stretchy rubber. These are pretty easy. Now this is the actual seal. The old ones were just plastic. I think they call it PTFE. These are like bronze impregnated things. And I don't know how hard they're going to be to get on there. I might need to preheat them, but we'll see. So this is my first time using this bronze impregnated seal material. It turns out there's kind of some things you need to learn, a bit of a learning curve with it, and well, you'll see. I'm trying to stretch it as little as possible in getting it on. Yeah, not too bad. They stretch a little bit and then they'll spring back after it sits there for a minute. Okay. It has a flat spot here at the bottom of the eye, and I think it will balance on that. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I'm going to grease these grooves to help hold it in place. All right, let's get that thing back in there and seal this thing up. Making sure that piston seal goes in there right. The seal is still a little loose in its groove after being stretched over the piston to install it. So I'm pushing it into position as I slowly lower it into the barrel. And a little coaxing with a soft mallet to get it to go in. Woo! And it was around this point that it started getting tight, even though I had quite a ways to continue threading it in. I'm gonna have to lay that down to really get it in there. More oil. Of course. Not sure why this is having so much trouble going together. I think it's supposed to screw in quite a ways, actually. And something is hanging it up. I don't know if there's a burr sticking out. I'm going to back this thing off and have a look. Man. Well, this is getting frustrating. I am trying to just unscrew this. I mean, I did hit it some with the chisel. I have hit this so many more times and moved it so much farther, but it will not come loose. I'm moving it like a millimeter every hit. I guess some bit of metal or something got in the threads and galled them up, and now it's just going to fight me the whole way. Look what I've done to that thing. Beating the heck out of it. I got out old Big Nasty. Been going at it with that too. I mean, it's like the thing welded itself on there. See if we can explode this wrench. Basically support the rod a little bit so it's not hanging. Why is it so tight? There it goes. There's a couple threads in there with a few nicks on it, but I don't see anything that bad. I actually wonder if it's not this. Like that's mushroomed out right there. I can feel it. So I think I need to go all around the edge of that thing and clean that up. And now that I look at this, this is a little beat up. And I think when I dropped this thing, when I was taking it apart and hit, I think it did that. And that is what's caused all this. Yeah, I got a burr right there, right there. Yep, that's your problem, idiot. The gland is still partially threaded in, so there's no way for these metal chips to get into the cylinder. That's the old O-ring that I'm holding the plastic on with. Really want to get all that abrasive cleaned up if I can. I love this job. Why is it so tight? GoPro, stop recording. All right, guys, I've been a bad YouTuber. So I took this thing all the way apart and I wanted to check the threads and really make sure that there was nothing like a burr hanging it up. When I took it apart, I found a broken seal. And the reason it broke is because when I put it on there, it was kind of floppy. And then when it went to get in the barrel, rather than getting pressed into the center, it got pinched and broken off. With a cylinder this heavy, you can't tell that there's too much resistance. That just happens. It didn't hurt anything, but it ruined this seal. These seals cost like $100 each. You know, that was just sort of my stupid mistake. What you're supposed to do is put them on and either compress them down or let it rest. Let it sit there for a long time until it regains its original size. And I didn't do that, so I was like, well, this was just a stupid rookie mistake, and I just wanted to get back to where I was. But then I realized this is the kind of stuff you guys love to see. I should have filmed it. I didn't film it, so I apologize for that. At this point, I put a new seal in there. I let it sit overnight. It came pretty much back to its original shape. The piston went back in, and I'm just now at the point where I was trying to screw it down again, and we're going to see if it gets tight. Hopefully it will not. Yeah, this cylinder, I think I jinxed myself when I said this wasn't going to be as hard as the boom lift. This has been a bear. Man, I checked the threads. Everything looked fine. I don't know why this thing is so hard to screw on there. Yep, gotta do it again. Man, this is going to take forever. Could technically have this wrench on backwards. And the reason that was on backwards, this way, when I'm pulling on two links at the same time. If it's this way, you're only pulling on that one pin there, that one link. Ooh. That's feeling like the end. So that is almost a 6-foot bar, and I'm putting most of my weight on it, which is 200 pounds. That would be 1,200 foot-pounds. What do you think they want this torque to? That's got to be enough. I'll whack it with the hammer and chisel just to cap it off. Ah, finally. That cylinder worked me, man. Done. So on the first cylinder, I put the piston seals on late, so I'm going to put them on early now. And I'm also going to heat them up in hot oil to try to make them a little more flexible, easier to get on there. Actually, it won't be till tomorrow until I start putting this thing back together, so it'll have all night to kind of rest and get back into its original position. So let's see how that works. That's hydraulic oil. You don't want it crazy hot. You want it pretty much just hot enough that you can touch it. Yeah, it shouldn't be burning you if you touch it. See how big that has gotten? And I mean, hot oil and that quick. The thing's just, it's like it's too big now. But give it time and that will go back to the size that it was. See what I'm talking about here? If I push it into the groove all the way around, I end up with that much too much. And that's quite a lot. It's really sticking out there. Both of them are doing that. The guys at Hawkins Grays tell me that you just have to give it time and they will compress back. They have a like a giant ring compressor that they use to help encourage the seal to go back to its original size. My ring compressor for, actual engine work is not big enough to get on these, just barely, unfortunately. So I'll just let them sit there. We'll see how it does. So I just waited a couple hours and I had not seen any improvement. So I actually tried my ring compressor again and I found that I can get it on there, but I have to extend it out. It's a little too big. Like the ring is not getting compressed right there. What I'm going to do is take this piece of plastic and put it in there and then tighten it up. It's going to force them to get back into their original position. Kind of need something stiffer than that. Let me see what I can come up with. Alright, I got a piece of shim stock. This is 10 thousandths thick. And I softened the edges so that it wouldn't mess up the seals. So we'll get that in there. So now I've got them compressed in from all sides evenly, and I'll leave it like that overnight. It's the next morning. Let's see how we did here. Nice. Tight all the way around. So I need to clean this guy out. There's a lot of crud in there and it goes all the way down to the bottom, which I can't reach. So I've got the cylinder oriented so that side is higher. Everything will run down into my little catch pan. And I'm going to use this little pump sprayer here that I've cleaned out really well. And I'm going to put old diesel fuel in it. That's actually diesel from the 1010 in that can there. And just use that as a solvent and try to flush it all out. Well, it's spraying all the way to the back. Yeah, it's little bits of seal. So that's a good thing. It's not going to scratch anything if some of it goes through the system. Still like to get it all out of there if I can. So what I really need is a perfectly clean mop that I can reach up in there with. I used a piece of wood so that if I hit the side of the barrel, it's not going to hurt anything. Well, I have to say that worked way better than I was expecting. Got all those chunks off the back. So now I'm just going to spray it out with some more diesel fuel, then probably hit it with some brake cleaner and some air. All right, I got it looking really good, but I brake cleaned it. And so there's not that much oil in there anymore, and I'm worried about condensation getting on it before I get this thing back on the machine and full of oil. So I put some hydraulic oil in my little sprayer, and I'm going to spray that up in there just to coat everything with clean oil so I don't have to worry about it. So that is ready for reassembly now. And I did grease. There's an O-ring and a backup ring. Did you come to help, Dozer? Yeah, it would definitely be easier to cut this off and then use a cheater bar when I need a lot of leverage. But I don't want to cut this because I'll end up using it for something else. In order to make it line up, I actually have to loosen it. So, yeah, I think that'll probably work right there. Can you see that's lined up there? Maybe. All right, here's our pin. Low strength thread locker. Need the wear bands, grease that up, and it's ready to go in the barrel. And the barrel's ready to go. Let's get this thing back together. Hopefully, well, I'm not going to say anything. Shut up, John. Sketchy enough for you? All right, now I've got it by the hose fitting that's adequately welded on there that can easily lift this. Get this thing horizontal without dropping it. I think that'll work. Oh, that's weird. This was a little nerve-wracking. You're looking at it thinking, that's not going to fall, is it? I'm ready to get the heck out of the way if it doesn't go right. But it did. Yeah. Didn't even need an extension on that one to get to the end. I don't know why the other one was so hard. I think that's gonna do it. I've got 2 rebuilt cylinders. They're both ready to go back on. And man, that was a lot of work. It's just so time consuming when everything has to be handled by a hoist. Yeah, you just have to figure out how to do everything, holding things down with the skid steer forks, and it's definitely not cutting edge engineering, is it? To have that mobile bridge crane above you, able to pick anything up that you need, then have that giant press that you can just hold the eye of the cylinder in place. Must be nice. But I mean, I'm kidding. Of course, that's what he does for a living. If I did this for a living every day, you're darn right I'd have that equipment. You have to. But me trying to figure out a way to do it as a farmer makes for a lot of challenges. Basically took me a day and a half. Way longer than I expected. I thought I'd be able to put the 2 of them together in 6 hours or something. But that one gave me a lot of trouble. This one I actually did do in about 3 or 4 hours. Anyway. All right, here's our epoxy, which has set up. It's still soft enough I can scrape it with my fingernail, which is great, because I don't want to have to use any more abrasive on the rod than I have to. All right, I think that'll do it. That looks pretty good. So I knew this was going to be challenging. It'd be really nice to put the bottom in and then just kind of swing it up into position, but the bottom will no longer support the cylinder. There's only air in there and the lines are wide open. So if you try to put the weight of the cylinder on the rod will just collapse. That said, I think I am going to go ahead and put the rod in position. See, I don't have enough room here to maneuver. If I could come straight at it with the excavator this way, I think I could just put the top eye in. But with the way I've got it, there's no real easy way to do that. Let me put this bottom in so that it's not swinging around, and let me see what I can figure out up there. Many people commented in the first video that I should have laid the boom flat to bring the cylinders down lower and then take them off. And that may have been easier, but there's a few reasons I didn't do that. First, I thought I was just going to pull the rod out, and to have it horizontal like it would be if the boom was flat, the rods would be much more likely to ding into something and scratch them. The other thing that wasn't obvious is I placed the excavator here and let it sit for a couple days, and it dripped the entire time, going through many pig mats and oil, and if I were to reposition the boom once I changed my mind on how I was going to do it, I would have had all that oil leakage yet again. So I decided to just go with it like it was, and maybe it was a good decision, maybe it wasn't. I do think it was easier to protect the rod from getting scratched this way, but it does leave me working on a ladder, and a bunch of people didn't like my ladder. I guess because it's aluminum, they want a fiberglass ladder. Shoot, you ought to see my wooden one. This ladder's great. Man, that's close. Ha! Take that. Hammer drop. Now I need a nap. Well, that's one cylinder down, and it actually went better than I expected. And I think that's going to be the harder of the two, because I've got a lot more room to come at that one with the excavator. So this one's going up there, and you don't have any room above it, really. I need to be able to have the excavator here and pick it up and put the eye in position. I go out of frame here, but this wasn't going to work. The cylinder ended up hanging below the bucket. So what I've done now, we'll see if this works. This is a ratchet strap. I think it's rated for 10,000 pounds. It's plenty, but I went ahead and backed it up with a chain anyway because I don't want to be dropping this thing. Hopefully that's going to allow me to pick that up and keep it on the bucket there so that I can kind of control it. I've got it cranked down pretty tight. can't believe that worked. Shouldn't have put that dumb chain on there. Kidding, if I hadn't put the chain on, it would have fallen for sure. I'll be darned. All right, that was easy. Just 2 little cylinders to do. No big deal. How long can 2 cylinders take? Well guys, we got a problem. I would really love to fire this thing up and cycle those cylinders, fill them back full of oil, and verify that they don't leak. But there's a lot of things that have to happen before I do that. Let me show you what's going on. That's the sight glass for the hydraulic oil tank. I've never seen oil in that since I bought it. I knew it was low. I didn't know how low. And there's no dipstick or anything. You have to take one of the filter housings covers off and look down in there. I don't know if that's coming across on camera. That is a nearly empty tank. So this is an 80-gallon hydraulic reservoir, and it has 3 filters on it. There's 3 just like that. Those filters, the cheapest I can find them, are $90 a piece. Yep, you gotta pay to play with the big stuff. The other thing is, I have to fill this thing full of oil. That's cheap. So yeah, I've got over $1,000 easily of money that I need to put into this thing. I need to get new filters, I need to get oil and change all this before I go trying to start this thing up and cycle those cylinders. There's probably Shoot, there might even be more than 5 gallons in filling those 2 cylinders up now, because they're just full of air right now. They're going to suck oil from this, and it'll end up in the cylinder. The last thing I want to do is starve the oil pump for oil and damage the pump, because I'm sure if that part's available, it's really cheap. Not. So yeah, I can't start this thing right now and do anything with it. I need to get this oil situation dealt with. But the problem is, right over here, I have a hydraulic line that leaks constantly. It's the third one over there, that one, and you can see it's got brazing on it. So while this thing's empty, I think I'm gonna have to take that off and see if I can't maybe grind away the brazing and weld it. These fittings are not available, so I can't just order a new line. This thing is challenging to work on, no doubt about that. So I've got filters on oil. I've got oil on. So I've got filters on oil. Boy, I can't talk. I've got to fix that line. I've got to change the filters. I've got to refill the oil before I can even think about starting this thing and seeing how those cylinders are working. I'm pretty confident they're going to work just fine, but I'd like to play around with the machine. But right now, I think that would be a bad idea. So there you go, guys. Unfortunately, I have to end it here. Trust me, I know you guys want to see it fired up and playing around with it, but I want to do it a whole lot more than you do. But more work has to be done before I'm able to do that without messing up the machine. Obviously, I don't want to mess it up any more than it already is. So, although maybe you guys would like to see that. That would just be more content, wouldn't it? So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one, and you'll definitely be seeing more of this guy.